Joining us now, Republican Georgia Senator David Perdue. Senator, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Brian. Early Happy New Year.
Okay, we'll take that. I tell you what, I know you're doing a lot of media right now, and you got a couple days on early voting, and next Tuesday's the election. So let me get straight into some of the things we want to talk about. You know, I attend many of the bus stops, 4 or 5 of yours in North Georgia, 3 or 4 events with Senator Loeffler. And I talk to the people, and you're meeting with them one-on-one. The number one thing I hear them ask you, or they talk to me about, is, will you fight for Trump to the end, and to elaborate on your support for the president? And I will tell you this, no disrespect. One of the messages I got last night said, "Hey, we don't want just lip service." So what say you about the patriots that you are meeting on the bus tour that are asking you about your support for the president?
Well, first of all, I agree with your description. They are patriots. They love our country, and they know what Donald Trump's done for us. Let me remind your listeners that in 2016, when then candidate Trump was running for president, there were only 2 United States senators who endorsed him and worked for him, and I was one of those 2. I've stood by him, and as he got elected, I fought for him to get elected. I fought with him to get this agenda enacted that gave us the best economic turnaround in history. I ran alongside him this past November to try to get reelected, and I'm still fighting alongside him right now to get a fair deal in Georgia. So we called for the resignation of the Secretary of State. We called for a special session of the General Assembly. We had phone calls after phone calls asking for the state to step in and do something. Look, I'm a federal officer. I can't do anything inside the state. That's for somebody who is in a state officer position to do that. But I'm standing with the president right now. I worked with him on Friday, on Christmas Day. He and I were working on this COVID package. He signed it into law. I'm fighting with him to the bitter end to get a fair deal in Georgia here.
Okay, so you're a federal officer. Let me take what you just said, because I'm going to agree. Okay, so we're going to get up to today. I'm going to agree that you have shown support for the president, his economic plan, and you endorsing him as the candidate in 2016. So I'm going to agree with that all the way up to, also, you called for the Secretary of State's resignation. You've asked for a special session, but you're limited because of being a federal officer of what you could do inside a state. So my question would be to you, and I think many out there, is that, okay, January 6th, you're no longer limited of what you could do inside of Georgia. Has the president asked you or talked to you about being part of objecting to the electors January 6th in the joint session?
Well, Brian, I don't necessarily talk about what I talked to the president about, but I will say this, that we've talked about all his options. We both have gone to court. We supported the Texas case they brought. And by the way, in that Texas case, the statistic your listeners should know about is that the absentee ballot rejections in the state of Georgia in November were so low, the probability of having that low a number is 1 in 10,000. So we know there were absentee ballots that were cast that were inappropriate. They have to be. So the error rate in Georgia is artificial, and nobody's really looked at that. These hand count audits and now even the signature audit are not appropriate. I call for a signature audit that would compare back to the registration signature. And in terms of doing everything the president can do constitutionally, I'm fully supportive of this $2,000 stipend that he just stepped up and said that we need to do. I'm in agreement with that, because we should have done all of this earlier, but the Democrats have obstructed all the way through, and they played presidential politics in November and held it up, and they've held it up again right now on this 2,000 vote. They're playing politics even this week with it. So I definitely support the president as he's trying to do everything he can do.
Okay, I'm going to agree, because I have followed you as my senator, and I followed your campaign, and I do agree. You have stepped out there and supported constitutionally in every way the president of the United States, his challenges to this election. But many people are saying that challenge is still there constitutionally January 6th. There's been many members of the House of Representatives that have stepped out, gone on record saying they will challenge the outcome. We out here, and I know you're hearing this on the bus tour, we feel between, and you're in Georgia, but we feel between, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, the list goes on, that there's many places where the president of the United States, we feel, won the election and it's invalid. So I do know with all the constitutional challenges still left, there is one January 6th, and the people of North Georgia, I feel, are looking for that senator that says they're going to step up and join in the objection. So, I mean, that's why I've really asked you if you have discussed that with the president or if you've thought about doing that January 6th.
We've done everything that he's asked us to do, and we're going to continue to do that. We went to court. We couldn't get satisfaction through the state, so we went to court. A couple of those cases were given back to us, thrown out, said that you got to go back to the state. So we've had phone calls here. We're going to do everything we can do constitutionally to support the president and what he's saying. Look, we had improprieties, but I want to remind everybody out there are people in Georgia, in the 9th district, who are not voting, Brian. That's absurd.
I agree,
They have a responsibility to President Trump. If they're angry like I am about what happened in November, they need to get off their backside and go vote. That's the only recourse they have. They can be upset all they want to. We haven't fixed this yet. We've got 8,000 people who are watching these polls. We didn't have anywhere near that in November. We have people watching every drop box in this state right now, 24 hours a day. We have poll watchers who are trained. They come in from out of state. We brought them in here to make sure that if we can't get the law changed, we can make sure that we're watching these guys as they handle these ballots. We're doing everything we know to do to make this vote in January 5th vote, as fair as we can make it. With regard to the president, somebody sooner or later is going to have to look at these states. And the problem is, as the president's finding out and as I'm finding out, when you're in the middle of the battle, a candidate, even a president, has very little recourse. We go to the courts, these Democratic judges throw these cases out. I mean, it's very frustrating. So I support the president in everything he's doing constitutionally and in the legal battles and every other thing he has a right to do. So people don't like lip service. Well, they need to look at what we've been to stop their lip service and get out and vote. If you're upset as I am, get out and vote.
Senator, you went right into where I wanted to go as far as confidence and getting out to vote and how important it is. And I cannot agree anymore. We have to get out and vote. Tell me two more things. I know you got to run. The phone call you had, and I understand you can't get into details of that, but the phone call you had with the president Christmas Day, and now your support for the $2,000 checks. Many people are saying, well, wait a minute, that's not a very fiscally sound decision. But then again, people are hurting. What say you? Why are you supporting the $2,000 checks? And what can you share with us on that Christmas Day conversation that may have swayed the president into signing the stimulus package?
Look, the president didn't like a lot of the spending that was in the Omnibus Bill, and I don't either. But they put it together, and so we know, the president knew, and I know, that we should have had this aid coming to the people of America months ago, but it got held up by the Democrats. And so what the president did over the weekend is stepped up and said the greater good is to get help to people who are hurting. We're trying to save small businesses. The first round of CARES at $2.9 trillion brought $47 billion to the state of Georgia, Brian, and saved 1.5 million jobs. What we're doing right now is getting aid to people who are hurting right now, and that's what the president is doing. Look, I fully support that. I encourage him, and so that's what we're finally about doing. We're going to have a vote this week, either tonight, tomorrow, or possibly Saturday, to get the $2,000 vote done, and I hope we'll pass that. But make no mistake, this president has for 4 years fought for the people of Georgia. He stood up to our allies. He stood up to China. He stood up to Iran. And, America first, he told people around the world, does not mean America alone, but we're going to take care of our interest again. And that's our right. And so this is another example. Look, I'm a fiscal hawk. Half the money that is going into this round, this $1 trillion, half of it is reprogrammed, more than half is reprogrammed money from the first CARES Act that did not get spent. So it's not as bad as it might look like. And they're conflating two things, Brian. The Omnibus Bill has a lot of bad things in it. The COVID bill is a necessary activity to make sure that the people who are suffering in this pandemic survive to the back end. The vaccine is coming. And again, I say, the Democrats would not have been able to produce a vaccine in a year. There's no way. We broke through the logjam of bureaucracy in Washington. This Operation Warp Speed that President Trump and Vice President Pence quarterback did that. The Democrats would have locked us down this year, next year, and the third year. It would have taken at least 3 years to develop this. And so the president is still in the last days of administration, potentially doing everything he can for the American people.
Talk about this close, and I know we're up on our close, so we'll close with this. Talk about how important it is to hold the line. One of my concerns among many is national security. Your opponent has ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Swalwell, Chinese Communist Party. I have a lot of concerns with national security. How important is it to hold the line? Give some of the highlights of why we must get out January 5th and vote to hold the line.
Well, there are three things. First of all, I want to highlight what you just mentioned, and thank you for bringing up the scandal that John Ossoff has that he has not come clean on. Look, this guy for 2 years was paid by the Chinese Communist Party. This is another example of how the Chinese Communist Party is trying to influence American politics. They got in Hunter Biden's pocket. They got into Congressman Swalwell's bedroom, and they got into John Ossoff's ego and his ambition to be an elected official. And for 2 years after he ran for the U.S. House of Representatives and lost against Karen Handel in 2017, the very next year they hire him and pay him for 2 years. He hid it from the people of Georgia during his primary this year. He lied about it. When he got caught, he came clean and then lied about it again. We still haven't had the answer to our questions about his relationship, but it's pretty obvious that he's just another young, aggressive, ambitious career politician wannabe that the Chinese Communist Party is trying to influence. And so this is just like Swalwell and Hunter Biden. Now, with regard to what's at stake, we know that Chuck Schumer says, take Georgia, will change America. Brian, they will absolutely get total control if they get these 2 seats, and they'll get it permanently, frankly. They want to stack the Supreme Court, add D.C. and Puerto Rico as new states. They want to do away with the Electoral College. And then that will allow them to perpetrate this outrageous socialist agenda that starts with defunding the police, cutting our military again, opening our borders, having illegal immigration, creating sanctuary cities throughout America, taking away our private health insurance, and, oh, by the way, giving us an outrageous Green New Deal, which would cost every American family $65,000 a year. This is insanity. So that's one thing. The third reason that they got to get out and vote is their loyalty to Donald Trump. What we've done the last 4 years is historic. If we lose these 2 seats, Biden will undo everything. Under President Trump, we became energy independent. We passed regulation laws. We fired 5,000 people at the VA for not doing their jobs. We are draining the swamp. It takes time, but we've got to hold the line to protect everything we did that allowed 6.5 million Americans to pull themselves out of poverty. So those are the reasons why this is absolutely critical, crucial for the next 50 years. Don't do it for me. Don't do it for Kelly. Don't do it for themselves. But look around. Look at the children and think about their children. This is what's at stake right now, Brian, is the form of America. What America will look like 50 to 100 years is determined by these 2 Senate races. I hate to be that blunt, but that's exactly what's at stake. So people need to get out and vote no matter what they're doing. I know President Trump is not on the ballot now, but they need to get out and vote and protect his legacy and everything that we accomplished the last 4 years.
Senator, thank you very much for being with us. We know you have to get on with the campaign. You got a busy schedule. Happy New Year to you. And Bonnie, thank you very much for coming up through North Georgia with the bus and saying hello to the people on the ground and listening to them. I want to say to our viewers, when he gets off the bus, he listens to the people. Thank you, sir. You have a great day, and we wish you well January 5th.
God bless you, Brian. We're going to finish up today in Hiawassee at 6:30. It will be our 100th bus stop. Happy New Year, Brian. Thank you.
Same to you, sir.